a writer's perspective on primal instincts, human nature, and capitalism. At the end of 8th grade, my class took a trip to Nova Scotia, in Canada. I don't remember exactly where we stayed, and I don't even remember a whole lot of the trip. I remember bits and pieces of the cruise we took up there from Maine, of playing Manhunt, a sort of combination between hide-and-seek and tag around the buildings we were staying in, a campfire near the shore, and a Mortal Kombat-style arcade game involving dinosaurs. There's one memory that stands out more than the others, and it was the first time I told a ghost story, and the experience really clicked with me. The story I told was The Red Lodge by H.R. Wakefield. It had been published in a collection called More Tales to Tremble By, and it had stuck with me for a variety of reasons. Reading it later, as an adult, revealed it to be less good than I remembered. I don't know anything about Wakefield, but the narrator of the story comes across as both an author-insert character and as cartoonishly pretentious. My telling was not verbatim by any stretch, just as close to the original as I could construct by memory. I told the story to my classmates, including a few spooky moments with silhouettes and faces in the window, and during the silence after I finished, there was a noise. And 2 shadows appeared on the frosted glass window of the outer door. If memory serves, it was a couple chaperones coming to join the storytelling, but for a moment it was as if the specters from my story had manifested in reality. It was the moment when I discovered my love of storytelling. For a long time, my storytelling and fiction writing focused on various horror stories. I had some friends who'd get together weekly in college for ghost stories, and I periodically have Halloween parties that center around sharing various spooky and supernatural tales. When I started trying to learn fiction writing as a craft, I started with horror. As I worked, I came to think of writing in terms of the emotions it could conjure in the reader, and to think about various techniques. Ideally, I want to guide my readers through a landscape that doesn't just contain a narrative of events, but also a variety of emotional experiences. I can't really say how skilled I am at my craft, but I think it's safe to say that with practice and study, I'm better than I was a decade ago. That's not much, but it's progress I can see, and I feel good about that. One of the things I've learned is that some emotions are much easier to conjure and manipulate than others. Using only words on paper, or a screen, or braille, how do you generate a feeling of surprised elation? How do you make someone feel hope? It's easy to write about someone feeling those things, but to actually and reliably make a reader feel them seems more difficult, at least for me. Satisfaction, awe, comfort, the feeling of doing something for the first time. Humanity is blessed with a nearly endless spectrum of ways to experience the world, and some of them are very difficult to replicate outside of simply living the events that create them. In my experience, the easiest ones are things like fear and disgust. Our reactions to threats are pretty universal, and pretty near the surface, because they generally come from a need for some immediate action. Get away from the scary thing! Wash off the gross thing. It could hurt us. It could make us sick. Pretty much everybody has had some version of those feelings, and they tend to generate strong memories. That means they're also very easy to use in politics. It's why various forms of fear-mongering tend to work so well, and why there's so much focus on what some like to call base instincts or primal instincts. Triggering emotional states that demand immediate tension or action puts other instincts and needs on hold. And if you can maintain those feelings in a group of people, it's far easier to get them to move in the direction that you claim will make those feelings go away. It's a nasty tactic because it always works, and because there are real problems in the world. It's particularly vicious when it's used by the people who create those problems in the first place. In atheist discourse, it's sometimes said that religion convinces you that you're poisoned, when you're not, and then offers you the fake cure to the fake poison. There are a lot of ways in which modern politics are similar to that, except that very often the poison isn't fictional. The economic hardship that people suffer is very real, but we live in a system that makes it difficult to tell what exactly is causing it. That means that the people who constantly push for policies that make life worse for most can then turn around and blame that misery on a convenient scapegoat while offering a cure that more often than not will only make things worse. Modern conservative politics, in the US and the UK at least, amount to a vampire telling the villagers that their strange neck wounds and feelings of weakness are caused by a disease that makes them produce too much blood, and so the solution is bleeding, and the vampire will take away the excess blood as a service. And maybe the exact nature of the problem changes. Maybe in time people notice that it doesn't seem to be a disease, so they'll find something new. We used to think it was a disease, but now it's those new, different-looking people who've moved into town. Sure, the problem predates them, but there were always travelers coming through before, and strangers living in the nearby forest, so maybe it's them causing the problem. The solution is to give all of the different-looking people to the vampire, and he'll deal with it from there. And when, after all the strangers are gone, and anyone who looks different has been eliminated or scared off, well, the problem's still there. Maybe it's a disease. Our ancestors thought it was a disease, and it sure seems like things were better in the past. So maybe we should rely on their traditional wisdom, and return to the old ways, and start that bleeding ritual. And so it keeps working until the people realize that no matter the exact nature or explanation of the problem, the solution proposed by the local ruler always seems to result in a lot of blood being given to him, in one form or another, and maybe that is the problem. Maybe we should try doing without that ruler. And that's when the spell can be broken. I think we're close to such a moment now. The pandemic has created a situation in which the leaders, who have been offering cures like do capitalism harder or give more money to rich people, are now pushing us towards the even more immediate and scary danger of a plague. It looks like their intentions aren't so pure after all, and maybe those nasty weirdos who've been ranting about vampires for all these years have a point. And as many of us stay home and isolated, we're discovering that we've got other primal needs that go beyond the immediate desires for food, shelter, safety, and sex. We need community. We need other people, not just to fight against immediate threats, but because community is part of what it means to be human. There's an old saying, with which everyone is no doubt familiar. Money doesn't buy happiness. These days it's often used to tell poor people that they shouldn't look to material wealth to solve their problems. After all, there are plenty of unhappy rich people. So we should all seek happiness through other means. Just try to enjoy your work more. Maybe find a new hobby during all that free time you have. Get more sleep. Meditate. Practice a religion. Find happiness in some way that doesn't mean rich people become less rich. That saying is true. Money does not buy happiness. Having your material needs met does not buy happiness. What it buys is the freedom to pursue happiness. It buys us time to think about what actually does make us happy. It buys us time with other people to use for things other than merely struggling to get by. It buys us time to ponder life and practice skills, to enjoy music and to play games. It buys us time to tell stories and to hear them told. When we spend all of our time and energy simply on getting money, that's time and energy we don't have for the pursuit of happiness. We live in a world of astounding abundance. We grow more food than the global human population is capable of eating. We have so much material wealth that we simply throw things away when they are less than perfect. And at the same time, people have to work endlessly just to make ends meet. It's a contradiction. Something is wrong, and everyone can tell. So explanations are constantly created and justifications offered. And as the whole population suffers and seems to be constantly moving from one fear to the next, the aristocracy is reaching ever loftier heights of prosperity and excess. And the plague has shown us that as well. As hundreds of thousands have died, and millions more grow ever closer to destitution, a tiny handful of people have been adding incomprehensible amounts of wealth to their hoards, and their servants have been working hard to make those easy emotional plays. They want us to be afraid and disgusted and angry. They want us to believe that conflict, terror, greed, and rage are the essence of humanity, and that we can only make the bad feelings stop by making the bad people go away. Immigrants, people of a different color, anarchists, Antifa. Anyone who seems to be causing disruption, they must be the cause of all the misery you were feeling. If we just get rid of them, things will get better. Removing the socialists didn't help. Well, they must have had allies. They sure did seem to like those union types, so maybe we'd better get rid of unions. Removing unions didn't help. Well, we've always said the immigrants were a problem, and there's still a lot of them around. Removing the immigrants didn't help. Who's next? Who's really causing our problems? Yes, I'm talking about that poem. Yes, we're talking about fascism. This is the natural progression as the hoarding of necessities creates artificial scarcity. It seems like there's not enough to go around, even though there's more now than there ever has been, so the problem must be that someone's taking it all. It must be those mean people who are always saying they're being mistreated. Everything seemed fine before the strange people at the bottom of the boat started complaining about leaks. And so we're distracted from those emotions that can lift us up as a species. We're distracted from what makes us human, and told that what really makes us human is our aggression and our lust and our greed, and since that's not all you want out of life, because you are a good person, well, it must be those other people who aren't like us. We just want to live our lives, but they are constantly demanding more. They can't get past their primal instincts. They will never be satisfied, so the solution is to remove them. But it's a lie. It's the new musician blasting loud notes in your ear and telling you it's the essence of music. It's the pulp horror writer telling you that the disgust and fear they can make you feel is the essence of storytelling. Those are valid and important emotions. They are real instincts that are absolutely a part of being human. They can be used to save lives, to educate, and to entertain. Just as some people enjoy pain and sex or athletic pursuits, so too can we enjoy fear, disgust, anger, and greed. But in constantly telling ourselves that those are the core of humanity, and that a society driven by those instincts will be better for everyone, we are denying most of what we are. The Tumblr post that inspired this essay puts it well. Quote, "People talk all the time about primal instincts, and it's usually about violence or sexual temptations or something. But your humanity comes with a lot of different stuff that we do without really thinking about, that we do without being told to or prompted to. Your average human comes pre-installed with instincts to befriend, tell story, make thing, investigate, share knowledge, laugh, sing, dance, empathize with, create. We are chock full of survival instincts that revolve around connecting to others, dog-shaped others, robot-shaped, and sometimes even plant-shaped, and making things with our hands. Your primal instincts are not bathed in blood. They are layered in people telling stories to each other around a fire over and over, and putting devices together through trial and error over, and reaching for someone and something every moment of the way." End quote. I believe that the pursuit of happiness should be a right afforded to all sentient beings, as much as possible, and throughout history it has always been those other, less urgent instincts that have brought us closer to that goal. Unfortunately, life costs money, and my income from this blog has yet to meet minimum wage for the time I put into it. If you can afford to, please consider pledging a couple dollars per month or so through my Patreon at patreon.com/oceanoxia. This will help me continue creating and improving this blog by keeping a roof over my head and food in my carnivorous pets so they don't eat me. Crowdfunding requires a crowd, so if you can pitch in a little, it would help a great deal. Thank you for listening, and take care of yourself.